Your Worship, we are live now.
Thank you. I'll give it another minute or so. So we're right on for 7 o'clock. At that time, I will ask all members of council to come on screen. All right, if the rest of council could come on screen, we'll call this to order. I'll say welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this, the 61st session of council on Monday, February the 14th, 2022. I welcome everyone in attendance and note the absence and the regrets from Councillor Gordon this evening. Okay. Again, the meeting is called to order for 7 o'clock, and this is a virtual meeting. As such, the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, Council's Rules of Procedure, Code of Conduct, and other pertinent legislation apply to these proceedings as if they were an in-person meeting. If any member's connection to the meeting is interrupted, I will ask council to pause for a moment so the member can reconnect. And if the member has not reconnected within a few minutes, assuming we still have quorum, the meeting will resume. And at this time, I need to report that we were in closed session this evening at 6 p.m. We were in closed session with regard to personal matters about an identifiable individuals regarding the Renewable Energy Fund Grant Review Committee applications and labor relations or employee negotiations, to which council provided direction to staff. And with that, at this time, I will call upon the clerk to start our proceedings. Madam Clerk, if you would raise the land acknowledgement.
Sorry, just 1 second. Too many screens here. Oh, there we go.
We acknowledge that we are being hosted on the ancestral lands of the Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, and Omami Winnini peoples. We acknowledge and welcome the presence of all Indigenous peoples, including the Métis, Inuit, and other First Nations from across this vast land who also makes this place home. The lands we are on today are recognized in the Two-Row Wampum, the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, Treaty 27, and the Crawford Purchase. Thank you. Welcome. At this time, we enter into the open forum. First 15 minutes of every council meeting is set aside for open forum, at which time any individual may address council to voice an opinion on such subjects of municipal concern, excluding matters that are subject to a public meeting, which we have 2 of this evening. Individuals can only speak once and for no more than 3 minutes. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and in accordance with the Ontario's Municipal Freedom of Information and Privacy Protection of Privacy Act, I will never get that right, all information is provided for or at public meeting, consultation, or other public process are considered to be part of the public record. Loyalist Township continues to be in a declared state of emergency with meetings being held virtually. So anyone wishing to speak at council is encouraged to register in advance with the clerk's division at clerk@loyalist.ca or use the raise hand option when called upon by the chair. So at this time, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone that is registered with you to present this evening during open forum?
We do have a number of registered individuals, starting with Amanda and Chris Clayton. So I'll just invite them over.
Welcome, Chris and Amanda Clayton.
Hi there.
Can you hear us okay?
Yep.
And we can hear you. Okay. With that, if you would give us your names and address and then tell us what your thoughts are, please.
Okay. Hi there. So my name's Amanda Clayton, and we live at 157 Island View Drive. So basically, we're just wanting to speak on the staff report that was put forward. And I guess how it might affect our family and our current living situation. So 4 years ago, my little girl had a pony party and we asked Mr. Tackaberry, who was the previous owner of the land, if we could use a bit of his land to host the party. And with a huge smile, he agreed and told us we could use the land for whatever we needed. So he let us plant bushes, trees, gardens, and my children even built a tree fort. And each year he was excited to hear what we had done with his land. And when he sold the land to Mr. Armitage, he called me right away and he said, "Don't worry, I told the developer how much you enjoyed your extra slice of land." And he told me that he would look into how he would work with us to preserve it, especially for the kids who have now grown their own veggies for the last 3 summers. So please consider the path the developer has put in his plans will have no negative effect on its current residents, like the staff report would, as it tremendously would change the way we use our backyard. And would also take away some of my kids' fond memories and current way we've grown accustomed to a yard that was graciously allowed access to. I've read the staff report and I noticed the type of path they're suggesting to link to County Road 6. It might be a gravel path. And as a mother of 2, I know these pathways are not fully accessible to all residents. Scooters, wheelchairs, rollerblades, even some strollers wouldn't be able to use the trail. And these trails are not lit up at night, not maintained in the winter, and therefore wouldn't really be as safe as a residential sidewalk, as previously presented by the developer, which would also be a direct link to County Road 6 and would fall under the active transportation guidelines. And if we as a community would like to combat climate change, as mentioned in the staff report, cutting down trees and bushes to put in a pathway will not be productive, as these natural growing trees have already become established and are already helping our community become greener. Also in the original plans, there was a little green space that would have to be removed to build the different pathway. And at the end of the day, it's not about the pathway design or the makeup. It's really about the location for us. The developer has graciously given us 5 neighbors a small allotment of land to give us that extra space that we've always wanted to call our own. and we've cared for it as such. So please consider his request, as it would mean the world to my growing family. So our vote would definitely be for the developer's original pathway, as it was an adequate connection to the existing trail in Ridge Park to County Road 6 and Lakeside Development, instead of the other pathway that would actually cut through our current backyard area. I think my husband, Chris, wanted to say something as well.
Please go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you everyone for your time. It's much appreciated, but I just wanted to speak about the developer, John, as I've got to know John over the last several years, and anyone that knows John knows how good of a person he is. And like, he does the community Easter Bunny hunt every year. He coaches hockey and rowing, and he gives back by his various donations, and he's always willing to help. He makes living in Amhersview a better place for his residents, and I believe he understands the extra land and what it means to us. And I believe he just wants to do the right thing. So it's greatly appreciated. In our previous meeting, I believe the councillors agreed with our concerns. We originally bought this house because of the green space behind us. Several of our decks would be very close to a path and would significantly change our yard, like my wife was saying. But I do want to stay in the community, but when I did hear about a path, I did question it. So again, it's made her change her view. But again, we do appreciate John and what he's doing for us, and hopefully you'd consider his plan. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I let you go, council, do we have any questions for Chris and Amanda? I'm seeing no questions. I'll say thank you for your input tonight.
Thank you for your time.
And Madam Clerk, who's next?
We have Mr. Paul Broderick. I'm just going to bring him over.
Welcome, Mr. Broderick. Can you hear us okay?
I can. I'm just going to put my beautiful mug on the screen for you if I can figure that out. There you are. Okay. Paul Broderick, 161 Island View. Just before I start, am I just on this issue? Like, I know I want to say a couple things about the capital down the road.
And if you keep it under 3 minutes.
Yeah, I can.
Go for it.
First of all, I'd like to just have council know that I'm saying the first part on behalf of Loyalist Minor Hockey that we'd like to thank the staff at WJ. They've done a great job, and I know you don't hear a lot of plaudits for people, but we're very happy with the way things are going. We've had some struggles, but we're heading in the right direction, and with the minister's announcement today, hopefully even better. Just on the report SR 1965, I won't repeat anything Mrs. Clayton and Mr. Clayton said, but big concern for me, obviously similar thoughts, but I don't see how the connection right now with County Road 6, I walk that path every day, and I don't see how in this budget year, how it'll make County Road 6 accessible in terms of healthy and active lifestyles. Also a little concerned about the sort of the May part of it with Hydro in terms of what kind of negotiations are going on there. And the other two other things quickly, I don't know if the township has a policy on walkways, whether there's certain standards, et cetera, because as the previous applicant or people mentioned, in the 8 years I've lived on Island View Drive, the pathway behind me and the one down behind McDonough have never been plowed in the winter, and maybe upkeep, maybe once a year they go through and look at it, but it's a concern, and I hope the council will look at Mr. Armitage's original proposal. I could support that as a resident. Just a couple things quickly on the capital budget. As minor hockey, I'd like to see some kind of long-term plan for the arena, because we're going to begin to the ice plant there, I understand, is 20 years old, and I'm just talking from the experience of Frontenac minor hockey a year ago, losing their entire season. And I would hope that council would look to have some kind of emergency fund set aside if they had to, or, you know, in terms of grant, I know there's a lot of grant, you know, where you get it and so on. Very pleased to see that the township has got the electronic Zamboni going. Couple other things. I like the idea of the fleet management with enterprise. I think that's a good way to go. And being a resident of Amherst for many years, and I just throw this out there, I question the use of $160,000 to put a roof on the old, what I call the old fire hall. I think that building has outlived its usefulness, and that money might be better off spent in another area. And I know that the community hub is a long-term project, but that might be money better spent there. I really do think that the county hall or township hall has outlived its usefulness, and I honestly don't know how much it was missed in a year where we were locked down and so on. So that's just a, you know, a small chunk of the budget, I know. And I hope the dog park gets going. This is the number of years it's been in the budget, and this is probably the first year maybe we'll be able to use it. And just to sort of conclude, I did a little research on number of hits on the budget and the capital thing, and I'd just be interested to know if anybody has any data that says or can say, is it multiple people, or is it 500 hits from one person, or they're from the same IP address? I'm always interested in things like that, but that's not here nor there. But again, I just want to thank the township from minor hockey for everything, and hopefully I'll get my last dig in here. We can get some longer ice this year than the traditional closing the 1st of March, or sorry, the 1st of April. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Broderick.
3 minutes.
I wasn't actually watching the clock very well, so we'll take
Thank
it
you.
as 3 minutes. Members of council, do you have any questions for Mr. Broderick? I'm seeing no questions. I will say thank you very much, Mr. Broderick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk? Who's up next?
I have Heather and Adam Batt, but I don't see them in the under that name. So if they want to raise their hand, if they are in the audience, I can move them over.
Is there a Heather and Adam Batt, I believe the name is? I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay, we can go to the next and then we can come back. I did see Ben Fisher, so I'll just move him over.
Thank you. And if Heather and Adam come in, please raise a hand so that we'll move to you next. Mr. Fisher, can you hear us okay?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
And we can hear you. Thank you. If you could state your name and address and tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, Ben and Lindsay Fisher, 155 Island View Drive. That's one over from Amanda and Chris that spoke earlier, and a couple over from Paul. Thank you, first of all, for taking the time and hearing us out. We're speaking on the same issue, and I think Amanda summed it up better than we could, but we'd just like to reiterate our support for the original plan by John, and sort of voice our concern about the potential pathway as residents that this probably affects more closely than anyone else. We're certainly more in favor of John's plan, and we certainly appreciate everything he's done to sort of present that to us and present that as an option. So nothing really more to say other than that, but I just wanted to be another, we wanted to be another a voice in support of that plan with the rest of our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Council, do you have any question for the Fishers? Seeing none. Again, we'll say thank you, and we'll move to the next presenter.
Your worship, the other I have is Megan and Ian True, and I don't see the name in the list. Again, if they'd like to put the raise hand, I can move them over.
Do we have a Megan and Ian True in the audience?
I see them now, your worship. I'll just
Okay.
put them over.
Ms. True.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome.
My name is Megan Douthwaite True. I'm at 153 Island View Drive, and my husband Ian True is here as well. Thank you so much for having us and allowing us to voice our opinion, and thank you so much for the clerk's office. It was my first time and a pleasure dealing with them to register for tonight's meeting. So sorry, cat fights happening in the back there, but my husband and I wanted to join this evening to speak about Mr. Armitage's plan to expand our backyards and the backyards of my neighbors by between 9 to 10 meters. 5 years ago, one of my neighbors and we took a trip to Mr. Tackaberry's house on County Road 6. And like Amanda, we asked him permission to use a small sliver of his land. Mr. Tackaberry was gracious enough to stop in the middle of the playoffs and that he was watching, walk the field with us and tell us the best places to plant gardens, how to remove the overgrown bush, and how to maximize the land. For the last 5 years, we've been enjoying this additional space, and we were sad to hear that Mr. Tackaberry had sold the land. Excited for him, but then Mr. Armitage, who I've never met before other than the occasional hello on his way down the street, offered graciously to provide us use of that land at no charge. We would just take care of all of the administrative duties. And this was an incredibly gracious offer. It would make our backyard flush with our neighbor at 151 Island View Drive and greatly enhance the enjoyment of our yard. We just recently put in a pool and we've been enjoying a lot of outdoor time and having that extra privacy and that extra space. We've recently taken in some foster children as well, and we've already utilized that space beyond our fence for playing in the snow, as well as some storage, and we can just see wonderful things happening there. Mr. Armitage was kind enough to extend the offer of the land since he knows that it's going to be a little bit of a rough go while construction goes on, and we won't be enjoying the beautiful fields behind us. And I would ask the council to please consider the motion to extend those lots offered by Mr. Armitage. And I understand that there has been no concrete plans for where the path will go, but that will allow us more flexibility in our yards, greater enjoyment of our homes, and then the path would be a moot point, and you may not hear from us on Island View Drive again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. True. Council, do we have any questions for this presenter? I'm seeing none. We'll say thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have anyone else in the audience wishing to speak during open session? Open forum.
I'll just ask again whether Heather and Adam Batt are here, if they could raise their hand. If not, we will go to, I see Chris and Amanda again, but just we're still looking for the Bats, but Mr. Armitage is next, so we can, I'll bring him over.
Thank you. And while we're waiting for him to come over, I will make the statement that officially, Mr. and Mrs. Clayton, open forum has one opportunity to speak, not two. Mr. Armitage, are you here?
I am.
There you are. Welcome, sir.
Trouble finding the mute button. I know my wife would like to be able to control that. Happy Valentine's Day, Council.
Valentine's Day.
I've been in close communication with the adjacent neighbors since we reached agreement to purchase the land last February on the dance hall, and then into the early summer with Mr. Tackaberry. And the process is becoming stressful. It was 6 months ago on August 13th that staff wrote to us saying they would like us to consider the extension of this walkway. And here we are 6 months later with no decision. The staff have had 6 months to negotiate with Ontario Hydro. Nothing has happened there because the walkway is useless without an easement across Hydro. 2 months ago in December, we had our public meeting, and our plan has been stalled for 2 months over this walkway issue. And, I need not remind council that, we've got a housing crisis and it's all about supply, but I've got a crisis because we're out of lots in Amherstview, and I was counting on this subdivision. The municipal act allows a municipality 90 days to deal with an application like this, and we're now at 180 days and counting. And so I need a decision tonight from council either way. Is this walkway going in or is it not? We've been stalled, I think unfairly, for 2 months, and we really need to get moving. The desire to give these free. So, Madam Clerk, I asked you if you had a plan of subdivision you could share on the screen. Would you be able to do that?
Madam Clerk, are you able to? Okay.
Yes, sir. I just got to switch screens here.
And so, I approached the owners because when we bought the land from Judge Henderson, you can see that the east limit of our subdivision was the west limit of the land that we purchased from Judge Henderson. In other words, the back lot line of the dance hall. And if you go to the southeast corner, you'll see that the back of the lots on the north side of Island View that we developed extend northerly beyond the ones on the area immediately south of our subdivision. How that came about was we entered into negotiations with Mrs. Champagne to buy her land to create the connection between Island View and McDougall. And unfortunately, her lot line didn't extend back to the lot line that we'd created. And these people have very tiny backyards. So when we were able to get the land from Mr. Tackaberry, he asked me if I would consider the owner's needs who he had graciously allowed to use his property. And when I looked at it, we were able to come up with a plan that really didn't cost us any lots. So it's easy to be a nice guy when it's not costing me any money. And so we came up with blocks 40, 39, 38, 37, 36 that we've offered to grant to the adjacent owners at no cost. But since August 13th, this walkway, the idea of this walkway extending along the back of those lots has been in front of us, and we're sitting here, and I'm dismayed that we're sitting here 6 months later with still no decision. Even if the walkway did go in along the back of lots 10 to 18, it ends at the Hydro right of way. And you guys your staff has had 6 months to negotiate that. And I think its time is up. I would hope council listens to what the citizens want. These people never expected my company to be intruding into their backyards, and that piece of land of Mr. Tackaberry's was landlocked, and the only way it would ever be useful would be attached to the dance hall. And I'm trying to do the right thing, and I asked council tonight to do the right thing and just simply make a decision.
That all, Mr. Armitage?
Yeah, we need, Mr. Mayor, we need a decision.
Thank you. Council, do you have questions for Mr. Armitage? I'm seeing no questions at this time. I will say thank you very much, Mr. Armitage. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone else in the audience who is asking to speak?
I just see Chris and Amanda Clayton. Last call for the Heather and Adam Bat is all, oops, they lowered their hand. So just whether the Bats are in attendance. And if not, that's all for the open forum that had let us know in advance, Your Worship.
Thank you. And is there anyone in the audience who wishes to simply use the raise hand right now? We are pushing the limits of our 15 minutes for open forum, but if there's someone wishing to present, I will take it at this time. I see George.
He is in under delegations, Your Worship. So George, we'll call on you shortly.
Okay, that's under a different one. Then I will ask, we can close the open forum session. And I will ask council to propose a motion to receive all the information provided within the open forum. Councillor Townend, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Deputy, thank you. Any comments from council with regard to the presented materials? I'm seeing none. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. With that, we move through to public meetings and notices of public meetings. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and in accordance with the Ontario's Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, that all information provided for a public meeting, consultation, or other public process are considered part of the public record, and Loyalist Township continues to be in a declared state of emergency with all meetings being held virtually. So we'll start with the public meeting 6.1 with regard to Loyalist Country Club Estates North Red Line Amendment for Draft Plan of Subdivision D12-010 and Zoning Bylaw Amendment D14-011-2021. Okay. Council will hear in person or by his or her counsel, solicitor, or agent any person who claims to be affected by this application. Is there any staff comment on this before we get into the public comment? I'm seeing none. And do we have, I think, oh, the director? Director Merritt, welcome.
Sorry, Your Worship. Every time I push a button, it takes forever to turn the camera on. I just wanted to let you know that there's a presentation by the developer, I believe, and the clerk will there. I see Ms. Jones. She'll be presenting.
Okay. And then I will say welcome, Ms. Jones, Ms. Lorelei Jones. We've seen you before. Welcome. And unfortunately, Ms. Jones, you're on mute as well.
Apologies, Mr. Mayor. I am going to share my screen.
Thank you.
So are you, so I apologize that I have to ask this every time I do a Zoom meeting, but are you seeing the full screen or are you seeing my notes as well?
I'm seeing your notes as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Now we see the whole screen, and I'm assuming the rest of council can see the whole screen. I'm seeing nods. Go ahead, Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. So we're here tonight with respect to the Loyalist Country Club Estates, what we're calling phases 11, 12, and 13. Tonight in the audience, there is also Roderick Sutherland, who is with Caitlin Holmes, and Murray Jocelyn of Jocelyn Engineering, who are available to answer any questions when we get to that portion of the meeting, if it's certainly required. So the area that we're dealing with is located in Bath, and this is Church Street on the right-hand side. We have Main Street further to the south, and we have Country Club Drive, as you can see it right here. So the overall golf course community was approved in the late 90s. It was done in two portions, the south half and the north half. And so what we're looking at tonight deals with the north half subdivision. The subdivision itself originally extended from sort of the western boundary that you can see outlined in red all the way over to Church Street and included down to Loyalist Boulevard. Since it was draft plan approved, the lands that are on Country Club Drive and Britannia Crescent have been developed with townhouses. The original subdivision for the north half was originally all single detached lots. There were 282 lots that were approved. At that point in time, there were 53 single detached lots that were included in this Britannia Crescent Country Club Drive area, and that's now been changed to 95 townhouse units. So what we're dealing with tonight is the remainder of that draft plan of subdivision. Again, it was all single detached lots that were originally approved. So the area that's outlined in red in front of you was originally approved for 220 lots. And you can see how it fits sort of with the golf course. So you can see the golf course holes that sort of surround the development itself. And so what we're proposing would then be an extension of the existing development. So this is the draft plan of subdivision that is being proposed. So what we are proposing to do is to increase the variety of the size of lots. All the lots that were originally draft plan approved were 16.8 meter frontages or 55 feet. We're now proposing to add 13.4 meter frontages, which is 44 feet, and 11 meter frontages, which are 36 feet. So you can see from the schedule of land uses on the screen that we'd have 70 55-foot lots, 122 44-foot lots, and 90 36-foot lots. So we would be increasing the number of lots in this area from the original 220 that were approved to 282. These lots would be developed in phases. So this area down here that I'm identifying with my mouse would be phase 11. The lots along Country Club Drive would be phase 12, and then the northern crescent would be phase 13. In terms of what the lands were also zoned at the time that they were draft plan approved, and so we also have a zoning application that is before the township to allow for the change in the lot sizes. Right now, the lands are designated low-density residential within the township's official plan. And that designation permits up to 31 units per hectare. The overall density of the area that we're proposing to redline, which is outlined in black on the screen in front of you, would have a density of 14.5 units per net hectare. So we're well within the low density range for development. The lands, as you can see, where the golf course occurs are designated as open space. So the residential lots are surrounded by golf course essentially. As I mentioned, the lands were zoned at the time they were draft plan approved, and so we've got 3 zones on them right now. They're all a residential type 2 exception with slightly different provisions, and all of them have a holding provision on them. So what we're proposing to do is to change the zoning, as I indicated, to allow for the decreased frontages. So what we're proposing now is the zoning that's on the screen in front of you in terms of the 16.8 meter frontages would have an R2 zone continued. And then we are proposing our front yard setback of 6 meters, an interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters, exterior side yard setback of 3 meters, a lot coverage of 41% for the building itself, 46% for all buildings and structures. So that would include things like decks and backyard sheds, and then a maximum height of 11 meters. For the 13.4 meter frontages and 11 meter frontages, we would obviously require the minimum frontage, but then in terms of the provisions, they would be the same in terms of, again, 6 meter front yard setback, 1.2 meter interior side yard setback, 3 meter exterior side yard setback. We're asking for a slight increase of coverage for lots that would be bungalows. And this is something similar to what was approved with respect to the Phase 8 portion of the subdivision in Loyalist Estates, where we had a 40% lot coverage. But if we were only proposing a bungalow, there was an allowance for an increase in lot coverage, because obviously we don't have as much of a building that's going to be permitted if it's not a 2-story dwelling. And then a maximum height of 10 meters. So in terms of some of the other things that were done in support of the application, we had some servicing analysis done. There is adequate water and sanitary sewer capacity to service the developments, and the water and sewer lines will be extended from the existing development along Country Club Drive from both directions. There's going to be some off-site improvements to the water distribution system required in order to provide for the appropriate amount of water pressure that's required for fire protection needs, and different options are being considered to address that. There are existing stormwater ponds within the area right now that are used for both stormwater runoff and for water for the golf course. And so there was an overall stormwater plan that was developed at the time the original subdivision was approved. And so the stormwater will be directed to those existing stormwater ponds. And staff have asked us to take a look at the stormwater flows that will be coming off these lots now, to just make sure that there's no changes that are required and the ponds are able to sustain that. We've also had transportation analysis that's been done by WSP Engineering. And so there was originally, again, a traffic impact study that was prepared back in the day, but obviously a few things have changed since the 90s. And so based on both Loyalist Country Club Estates, which is owned by Caitland, and the various sub companies that they have, as well as Aura by the Lake, which is the former Pylands that were originally referred to as Windermere. WSP prepared an overall traffic study to sort of look at that. They've now prepared an update to that that would also consider the change in the number of units that are being proposed by this red line revision. And the report indicates that the roads are capable of accommodating the increased traffic, and has identified where there are intersections that need improvements. None of those intersections are immediately sort of adjacent to the Loyalist Country Club Estates. They're all sort of further east in Bath around the Aura by the Lake development. So around Somerset Drive, Heritage Point Drive, and Sir John Johnson Drive and Main Street intersections. One of the other things that we were asked to do as part of this traffic analysis was to look at appropriate measures for traffic calming. So we recognize that Country Club Drive is a collector road, and that it ultimately does extend around the whole subdivision and community area. So we want to make sure that there is appropriate traffic calming within the area. Some measures have been undertaken already, such as there is a roundabout within the community right now, and there's also some what we call golf cart crossings, which you can see in the top right hand corner of the screen, and those are sort of a little island in the middle of the road, which again provides some traffic calming measures. So the intent is to make sure that the traffic functions appropriately within the subdivision. And as I understand it, staff have sent this report out for a review. The last thing I just wanted to mention quickly was that in terms of the designs, the Phase 8 subdivision that council had approved has now been sold out. And so they're obviously anxious to move forward with approvals for the next phases. And so these are examples of some of the house prototypes that have been developed for Phase 8, and they'll be proposing something similar when it comes time to develop phases 11, 12, and 13. So my presentation for tonight. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. You could stop sharing for me.
Yep.
I would ask council, do we have any questions for Ms. Jones at this time? No questions? Thank you for the thorough presentation. This is a public meeting, At this time, I will ask the audience, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this application? Madam Clerk, are you seeing anyone with raised hands?
I'm not, Your Worship.
Neither am I. Give it another call. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? Still seeing none. With that, I come back to council. Council, we have a recommendation before us. We've had the presentation. There's an opportunity for questions and public input. And council, what would you like to do with this recommendation? Councillor Porter, go ahead.
I do have a question through you,
Please.
Mayor, for staff. In the recommendation, you're recommending that this be brought back to council once comments from our township departments, agencies, and public have been addressed. Do we have a time frame on that? What we're looking at as far as turning this back around to back to council?
Director Merritt, are you able to answer that?
Through you, Your Worship, at this time, there are still some technical information that needs to be provided by the developer so we can complete our review. And once we have that information, we can move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? I'm looking for a motion then. Councillor Porter, go ahead.
I'll move to receive the report and adopt the recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? I'll go to the deputy. Thank you. Councillor Porter, any comment?
No, thank you.
Seconder?
No, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no further comment, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And thank you to Ms. Jones and Mr. Sutherland. We move forward to our second public meeting, Lakeside Ponds zoning amendment file number D14-012-2021. And Madam Director, do you have presentation or comment on this?
Through your worship, it is. I see Mr. Jocelyn is ready to present, so the developer will be making a presentation. Because we require a decision from council on this one for tonight, so staff will be available after the answer and if there's any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Jocelyn, you're here?
Yes, Your Worship, I am here, but it was not my intention to make a presentation, although I believe that Mr. Armitage did.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
I believe this is the Photon group, not Mr. Jocelyn.
That's correct. Good evening. My colleague Dave Natton will be providing a presentation shortly.
Okay, Mr. Natton, there you are.
Good evening, everyone. Just going to share my screen here.
Lakeside Palm Subdivision. I think we can all see that. Seeing nods from council. Go ahead, Mr. Natton.
Great. Thank you, everybody, and happy Valentine's Day. I'm Dave Natton. I'm a planner with Photon Planning and Design. And I'll just be making a short presentation for the zoning bylaw amendment application submitted on behalf of Bar Homes. So just to provide a little background for the site itself, the lands being the Lakeside Pond subdivision are outlined on this slide in red and are southeast of the intersection of Taylorkid Boulevard and County Road 6.
Mr. Natton, can you move the slide forward for us?
What do you, sorry.
We're seeing the working side of it. If you could, press play, we can see slide 1 clearly, but we can only see the small version, the thumbnail version of slide 2.
Okay. that better?
Not yet.
This is interesting. Apologies for this.
I'm assuming council's seeing the same thing I am. Yes, okay, yes, yeah. Oh, your mouse is moving. We can see that.
Yes, it seems to be.
There you go.
Computer.
Okay, now we can see slide 2.
Okay, it is not showing on my screen that way, but if you can see slide 2, that's great. We'll just carry forward. So yes, so the subject lands are now shown on the screen, outlined in red. So it's in a traditional residential area, kind of building off of the development adjacent, is in good proximity to the commercial center, as shown, in some amenities such as the Emirates View Golf Course, Fairfield Elementary. Slide 3 is showing?
Yes.
So in the official plan, the subject lands are designated low and medium density residential. Through the plan of subdivision, the intent is to accommodate fully serviced residential uses and a range of built form. And these are supported to meet the full range of housing needs in the community.
That worked.
Moving into the nature of the application, the general provisions within the township zoning bylaw restrict the number of model homes per phase to a maximum of 2 model units. So through these provisions, there are restrictions for the opportunities to establish model units such as model townhomes or row homes or semi-detached dwellings that may feature secondary units. Before getting into some of the particulars, I'd just like to bring to the attention that the applicant is proceeding at this time with phased final subdivision approvals for the 2 approved draft plans of subdivision, which apply to the subject lands. So the particulars of the amendment, the application is seeking to increase the number of model homes permitted through the general provisions of the zoning bylaw. The effect of the amendment would result in permitting a maximum of 20% of single detached dwellings per phase of a development, except that a maximum of 2 and no more than 6 may be constructed, whichever is the less. And the amendment, pardon me, would also include permitting 2 semi-detached model dwellings up to a maximum of 4 dwelling units, then again to help accommodate models with built-in second units, and 1 model townhome block per phase of the development. The outcome of the amendment would ultimately provide flexibility for the applicant to pursue the development of model homes which reflect the housing typology and options that are going to be provided within the development. In summary, we are of the opinion that the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the County of Lennox and Addington official plan and the Loyalist Township official plan, and meets the intent of the zoning bylaw as amended. That is all for the presentation, but I'm available for any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nanton. If I get you to stop sharing. Thank you very much. Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Nanton? As I'm seeing it, this is basically a request to allow for more model homes in the process of building the subdivision. Is that accurate summation?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. And I see that our director is back again. As she indicated earlier, she's available to answer questions of a technical nature as council is being asked for a decision this evening. Okay. Council, do we have any questions with regard to this application process? I'm seeing none. This is a public meeting. At this time, I will ask if there's any member of the audience who wishes to present or make comment on this application process. I'll turn to our clerk to see if anyone raises a hand.
Not seeing any at this time, Your Worship.
I'll give another call for the public. and perhaps more time for council to think of questions if they have any. So there are no comments from the public. I'll come back to council one last time if any questions. And again, it is noted that there is a recommendation for council to make a decision that would lead to a bylaw. I see no further questions, no further comments. Do I have someone that wishes to make a motion? Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Move to receive the report and adopt the recommendation.
Motion to receive and adopt. Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Buderick, thank you. Any comments from the mover or seconder?
No.
Any comments from anyone else? Seeing none, and then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Netton, and to the director, and we'll move forward.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Next to 6.3 is not a public meeting, but a notice of public meeting with regard to the proposed Latham Pools Road closing south of Taylor Kidd Boulevard and north of Highway 33. A public meeting will be held in accordance with Township Bylaw 2004-33, which proposes to stop up, close, and sell part of the Township road allowance described as that portion of the unopened road allowance between Lot 26 and Lot 27, Concession 1, Ernestown, now Loyalist Township, part of the road allowance between Lot 26 and 27, Concession Broken Front, closed by instrument number LA 45719, Ernestown, now Loyalist Township. Council will hear on what's the date? It's a proposed meeting for what date? I'm not seeing that right now.
Sorry, Your Worship. I think Ms. Furnish just came on.
There she is.
On camera here. She can answer that question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. It is actually intended to be the public meeting this evening and was advertised as such and circulated as such in the newspaper. So the title of the actual notice that went out was a notice of public meeting for tonight. So it is intended to be a public meeting this evening.
Public meeting for tonight. Okay, that's,
yeah.
I was reading that wrong. My apologies. The title on the section was incorrect then.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a public meeting for this evening. Right? So council will hear in person or by his or her counsel, solicitor or agent, any person who claims to be affected by the passing of this bylaw. Is there any form of presentation with regards to this tonight, Ms. Merritt?
Through Your Worship, no, there are no presentation for tonight.
Thank you. And I will go to the public. Is there any member in the audience who wishes to make comment or present any information with regard to this application? Madam Clerk, are we seeing any hands?
No, Your Worship. No, no hands up.
Council, do we have any questions about this? Comments? Seeing nothing from council, I'll make one more call to the public, to the audience. This is a public meeting. If anyone wishes to make comment, now is the opportune time. You may raise a hand. I see George. I know, George, that you're here to speak to a similar topic later on, and you have a delegation to do so. But if you wish to speak to this particular one for this public meeting and sticking to that topic of the public meeting, you are welcome to speak. Madam Clerk, would you bring George over? Welcome, Mr. Qatar.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm sorry, I missed what they were suggesting, closing the road between law 26 and 27, is that involve Van Winkle where I am or the south of Taylor Kidd?
It is south of Taylor Kidd, between Taylor Kidd and Highway 33.
If it's south, then I don't have any issues with that.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And again, you are still on the delegation list for a few minutes from now.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? I'm seeing none. We do then have a report with a recommendation. The road closing, SR 1958. Council, do I have any questions on this before I ask for a motion? Then I will ask for a motion. What would you like to do with this, council? Councillor Buderick, go ahead.
Receive and receive and accept the recommendations as to approve it.
So moved. Do I have a seconder for that? I'll take Councillor Parks. Thank you. Any comment from the mover? Seconder? Anyone else? Then I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We move to item 6.4, notice of public meeting, and this one is a notice of public meeting. My apologies for my mistake before. With regard to the 2022 capital budget, in accordance with Township Notice Bylaw 2007-119, notice is hereby given that the Council of the Corporation of Loyalist Township intends to adopt the 2022 capital budget at its regular council meeting to be held on March the 14th, 2022. So that is just a notice that this will be going out and will be published in our agenda. I see Madam Clerk's hand up.
I believe the Deputy Treasurer does have a presentation at this time, Your Worship.
Thank you. Mr. Renier, have a presentation with regard to the budget?
Yes, I was asked to give a brief capital budget recap tonight, followed by a also brief operating one, as I guess I was missed in the last one, and that one's going tonight. So if everyone doesn't mind and wants to bear with it, I'll do a little recap and we'll get on with it.
No more than 3 hours, right, Mr. Renier?
I promise nothing. I don't know how you like spending your Valentines, but I know I like spending it with all of you. So
go ahead.
So this is just a quick recap for the capital budget. And I would encourage anyone watching at home who hasn't seen it, if you do visit the website, there is an up-to-date what we call the budget binder on there. That includes all the background information, including an appendix that has a detailed list of all capital projects and how they're proposed to be funded if you are looking for that level of detail. Okay. So our 2022 proposed general rate capital budget is about just under 10.7 million. You can see here it's organized by the managing division of the projects. I'm not going to go into the projects tonight, but overall it's just under 10.7. And I did just want to say that this does not include the potential of carry forward projects from 2021 and prior years. We will be bringing a separate staff report right now proposed for the March 14th council to recommend bringing some carry forward projects forward. And at this time, in addition to this new capital funding, we are expecting approximately $13 million in carry forward projects. So with the 10.7 million in new capital for general rate, this is how we've proposed to fund it this year. About 1.6 million from reserves. We have 538,000 from CCBF, which is the federal gas tax. There's various other grants, 2.6 million. The large bulk of that is the OCIF funding, which we did get about a double up this year. So that's about $1.5 million. And our OMPF allocation for the year is included in that as well. There's some developer charges, some third-party agreements, capital contribution pay as you go. So that's the amount that's built into the operating budget to transfer to capital. And then debt / contingent on grant opportunities of 3.4 million. So that's essentially the funding gap between the proposed projects and all known sources of funding. And just to build off that funding gap, we did just want to quickly touch on the cumulative funding gap. So if you remember last year, in last year's budget, there was about a $6.2 million funding gap. We have made some adjustments this year, and we are also proposing to adjust and defer some projects. So that carry forward funding gap now is about $3.5 million. You add it to this year's 3.4, there's the potential for just under 7 million in funding gap. We do have 1.2 million in unallocated reserve fund. So the net overall funding gap is about 5.75 million. So what that means is if we spent every budget dollar in 2022 with all the carry forward, we could potentially have to take out 5.75 million in debt. Just long range, here's our general rate 10-year capital plan. You can see the red line below is the funding gap. You want that closest to the zero as possible. And the orange line up above is the proposed capital requirement. You can see there is a massive spike in 2023. We expect that to get smoothed out a bit. What happens in preparing the 2022 budget, a lot of things that get deferred for this budget kind of get placed in 2023 until we have further time to go back and look and analyze it. So we would expect it to smooth out somewhat. But yeah, you can see the spikes there in 2023, another small spike in 2025, and then again a spike in 2031. And we did just want to touch on the forecasted debt payments potentially. So it is important to note that none of this includes the potential of a community hub when we're looking at these charts here. 2022 right now, we have $1.5 million we spend between general rate and utilities to service our current debt. Based on the projected capital requirements going forward, we could see a high in debt servicing payments in 2027 of about $3.6 million. From a ministry perspective, they would consider the township at that point to be a moderate debt risk. What that means is based on the FIR, we do have the funds to service the debt. So from a debt capacity point of view, we're doing pretty well. But I think the bigger picture and why we keep working on our asset management plan and trying to build long-term funding plans is more what the impact on the potential tax levy would be to service the debts. So just to give you an example, that from 2022 up to 2027, if we hit that, it's about a 10% increase just to service the debt alone. So you can see that puts quite a strain on our tax levy. So that's why we are always looking for grant opportunities, partnerships, and just general other efficiencies. Did want to briefly touch on the hub as we did before. So right now there is 2.7 million going to be proposed in the carry forward budget. And what that is, that money's there if we do hear back from the two green and inclusive community building application grants that we have currently outstanding right now. We would have the money to go ahead with a design if we were successful with one of those grant applications. And as with the community hub, as like last year, we just want to mention that based on the results of the applications, whether successful or not, further reports and analysis will be coming forward to council before any hard and final decisions are made, as it will have quite a large impact either way going forward in the township. Going back to the committee of the whole, we did propose just under $1 million in 2023 pre-budget approval. So I just wanted to mention that again, just to remind everybody. And that's mainly due to ordering them. So they'll get ordered in 2022, and hopefully this means they'll be delivered in 2023 when we will need them. Just going into utilities. Utilities is just under 4 million this year in total proposed capital, split about 2.7 from water and about 1.2 in sewer. Here's the utilities funding plan. Some fleet equipment reserve, using some impost from the water and sewer user rates. There is no proposed debt, just like last year in the utilities capital at this time. So here's the utilities 10-year capital plan, and you can see some spikes in 2023, and then there's 3 more in 2026, 28, and 31. Those 3 spikes in 2026, 28, and 31 specifically relate to expansion around Amherst Water, the Fairfield plant, as well as the Bath water plant. The good news, even with those large spikes, you'll see the red line for the most part is right around the zero meaning there is no infrastructure debt, and that's because those large spikes due to growth are impost funded, and we do have our impost reserves. They're there. They will be used for that. They'll be massively depleted after that, but they will serve their purpose. So that's why we have that zero infrastructure gap there. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but part of the Committee of the Whole was talking about the potential of the enterprise fleet management and entering into a pilot project versus if we just bought the 16 vehicles outright with the carry forward. You'll notice later on in the council agenda, there is a report on their community customer service specifically to entering into this agreement. So I'm not going to spend time there, but I did just want to highlight as it was an important part of the overall capital presentation. There's my usual budget as a policy document. I'm sure you don't all want to hear it tonight. So these are the next steps. So we're having this tonight. We will be bringing in the bylaw on March 14th. So for the next month, we can receive any comments around the proposed capital budget, and with the expectation that there would be a vote on the bylaw at March 14th regular council meeting for the capital budget. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Renier. You would stop sharing. Thank you. Council, do we have any questions with regard to the presentation Mr. Renier just provided? Again, this is a notice. I also see that our CIO has popped on screen.
Just to help answer any questions, Your Worship, and support Mr. Renier, who did such a fantastic job.
Absolutely. Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Renier or Mr. Silver with regard to this proposed capital budget? I'm seeing no questions. I believe this brings the section 6 public meetings to a close. Thank you, Mr. Renier. We don't need a motion at this time, do we? No, that's. I'll go, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just looking for clarification. The way I read them tonight is the public meeting and it'll be passed on in March. So is it a public meeting open, looking for information from the public as well?
Yes, this was similar to what Ms. Furness said. It was advertised as the public meeting tonight in the paper.
Okay, again, I misinterpreted that title. My apologies. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this then? Again, this is a public meeting. Any member of the audience is able to speak to it. If they are wishing to, if they could raise the hand, use the raised hand tool. I'm seeing no public input at this time. Members of council. I'm seeing no input at this time. No one? Okay. And we appreciate the public input. With that, so that is now a notice of public, a public meeting. Do we need to have a motion to receive that we got nothing? Madam Clerk?
Oh, sorry, we do have one hand up, Your Worship.
Okay, we'll take it. And I believe it's Mr. Broderick.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
We can, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that some comments were made in the 15-minute public session, that be included.
Absolutely. Mr. Renier, did you capture those comments from Mr. Broderick earlier?
Yes, that was specific to the leisure center roof as well as the enterprise fleet, I believe earlier he spoke to.
Thank you.
Anything else then? Mr. Renier, go ahead.
Not specific to this, but before we move on, I was after this, I was asked as well to give a quick recap on the operating budget at this point, but after this, just before we all skip ahead, I guess. Sorry.
Madam Clerk, I'll look to you for procedure.
So through your worship, the public meeting was just a presentation in regards to the capital. The operating, there is a report on the agenda. So the recap that the Deputy Treasurer is giving, the report in the agenda would suffice for the recommendation.
And the report in the agenda with regard to the operating budget. And
yes,
so
Your Worship, item 13.2.
Yeah. So are we asking Mr. Reniers to make the presentation on the operating budget now or at that time?
Up to Your Worship.
Okay. Just for clarity, Mr. Reniers, I will ask you to make the presentation at the time that we get to that item in the budget. Okay, so we are at the end of the public meetings. I require no further motions. Seeing nods. Okay, then we can get to our confirmation of agenda. Okay. We have the agenda before us. Is there anything to amend or edit on this agenda? I'm seeing none. I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. And Councillor Porter, thank you. Councillor Townend seconds. Any comments? I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Now we get to delegations and presentations and Mr. Qatar. Madam Clerk, if you would invite Mr. Qatar into the meeting.
He should be coming in now.
Excellent. Welcome, Mr. Qatar. If you can hear us this time. There you are.
I can. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today.
Thank you. And go ahead, sir.
So my name is George Qatar. I live, own, and operate Millhaven Storage and U-Haul at 4945 Taylor Kid Boulevard, which is directly across the road from the future manufacturing plant that we all know about, Latham Pools. I question how and why it got approved by the township, knowing really it's right next door to a conservation area, which is Paris Bay. I understand that I'm not here to oppose it. I understand that we need to attract businesses to the industrial park, but the location of it doesn't make sense to me. It could have been a little west of here and didn't have to remove 140 some acres of trees that have been planted by late Judge Henderson that I purchased Millhaven Storage from. I just wanted to make a point how all these businesses around me are impacting my business, whether negatively or positively, but mostly in a negative way. In my 15 years that I've been here, I've seen a solar farm where another 200 plus acres of forest land has been eliminated. And the same thing with the windmills. The reason I'm bringing this up is because of the water drainage that I take from all the solar farm. The surface water comes through my property and goes straight across to Cocoa paving. And so it reaches a point, right, the water flow reaches a point right in front of my gate entrance to the storage building. It goes east to west, and then there's a culvert that takes the water up north towards the storage building to avoid the cul-de-sac, knowing it's not ours. So the cul-de-sac, the culvert takes the water up north, and then it goes west towards Cocoa. And this water keeps going straight, and it accumulates and pools around the north of Taylor Kidd between me and Jim Snow Drive. There's no way for the water to drain south into the lake. So in the springtime, every year, I deal with a water backup that pools around that culvert that I'm talking about and creates a lot of problems for me. And it's getting worse over the years. So I was talking to Bowden a month ago or so in regards to trying to purchase the cul-de-sac, the remaining of Van Winkle Road. And he mentioned to me that Coco may oppose that, knowing that it might be the only entrance to their property. So I would like to have your support and councils to see whether there's a solution for this, whether I can acquire this cul-de-sac and allow me to expand my business and move my gate up further and maybe construct a couple of storage buildings in that area. And I would like to suggest maybe if you can reach an agreement between Township, me, and the Coco Paving to see whether I can purchase maybe up to my house driveway. That leaves them about 100 feet or so to have an entrance if they wish to enter their land. And so back in 2013, this road was closed north of the cul-de-sac, and I was able to buy half of it to please both parties. I believe that the road allowance is supposed to be 66 feet, so I was able to get 33 feet along the property line of mine, and they got the rest. I don't think we can do that now with this cul-de-sac, because if we do split the cul-de-sac, it wouldn't allow for traffic to come in and out. So what I'm suggesting is that if I can get up to the driveway of the house and they have another 100 feet or so before Taylor Kidd, that they can have an entrance to their property if they wish to do so. If I am able to buy this, I'll be able to put a culvert underneath the cul-de-sac that allows the water flow to go straight to Coco's property instead of it going north and then west. And the water backs up and accumulates in front of the gate and creates a lot of problems for me. So that's one. And the second one I would like to bring up is the signs that Van Winkle signs. They're pretty much misleading, and would like them to be taken down, because obviously there's no road, there's no allowance, like there's no, people get confused and they pull into Van Winkle and they have to turn around my property, or some transports have to back up onto Taylor Kidd and carry on. So it's pretty much confusing, those signs. I would like them to be taken down. They just don't make sense. And if I'm not able to achieve that, then I would like to see this road maintained. I've been here for 15 odd years. I haven't seen anybody do anything for that cul-de-sac except for plowing. They come in and push the snow towards the ditch where the culvert is and blocks it and creates more problems for me. If I'm able to purchase this, I'll be able to put the culvert, a bigger culvert underneath, obviously, the cul-de-sac, and the water flows better and it won't back up and create all these problems for me. So the 2 points I'm looking for is to take down those signs and see if there's a way I can purchase this cul-de-sac for me to expand my business and allow to service the community better.
Okay. Is that everything, Mr. Qatar?
Pretty much, yeah. I don't know how much time I have, but I have many other issues, but those are the main two things that I'm looking for. Especially now with Latham Group across the road from me, there's a lot of foot traffic. There's a lot of traffic coming in and out. A lot of delivery trucks, whether it's gravel or anything, they pull into the Van Winkle and they try to turn around, and so it's creating a lot of problems for me. I understand that we need the business here. It might be an additive to my business. It's going to bring me more business, but I need to expand. I need to be able to get this cul-de-sac purchased if I could, so I can put in a couple more storage buildings. So the issue that I'm having is Coco don't talk to me. So I'm thinking that if you guys can do something where whether we can split what I suggested for the land of the cul-de-sac, or I can have it all. I'm not sure how that works. They say it's the only entrance to their property. But I don't know whether they can come in from Jim Snow or from the other side. I don't see them doing anything with this empty land here, except just it sits there. So I'm looking for the water drainage or some sort of culvert to take that water down south towards the lake, because it just sits there, it doesn't go anywhere, and it backs up and creates a lot of problems for me. And if I'm able to buy this land, I'll be able to put this big culvert, and then it'll relieve a lot of water from my business. You know, storage and water don't go well together. So
okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Qatar.
So I don't know where to go from here. So
let me start with asking council if we have any questions for Mr. Qatar. Council, you've heard his story, you've heard his issues. Okay. Do we have any questions with regard to what he's presenting? Seeing no questions, okay. I would think it would be very appropriate, Mr. Qatar, as you had asked for, to ask our staff to work with you and then bring a report back to council about what our options are. But I will turn to council to see what council's wishes are. I'll go to Councillor Porter.
Yes, I'd like to receive the presentation and direct that staff bring a report back with clarity and information on the points that our delegate has brought up.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Buderick. Thank you. Councillor Porter, any comment?
Just I would like to understand your concerns better, and I think the best way to do that is to get a staff report on it to give us all some clarity and better understanding of some of the issues you've raised and the concerns, and if there is feasible options that we can pursue as a municipality.
I appreciate that. That's what I'm looking for, is some direction, some help on how to go about it.
Thank you. Councillor Buderick, do you have comment?
I've talked to Mr. Qatar a few times previously about this, so yeah, just trying to see what we can do to help him out for sure.
Thank you. Other members of council have comment? And I'm seeing nothing further. And I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Qatar. Staff will be in touch and we'll be providing a report back to council at a later date to let us explore the options, see what we can do.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, thank you, Mr.
Rick, sorry, Your Worship, you have muted. I don't think I did that, but let me just double check.
My apologies. Apparently that was me. I don't know why I was muted, but so I'm not sure how much of all that we heard, but the motion was carried. And did we hear that part? Yes, okay, the motion was carried, and we're moving on to section 10, the adoption of minutes and business arising. Right, first up is 10.1, the confirmation of minutes of the 60th session of council, January 10th, 2022, be adopted. We have the minutes before us. Are there any noted errors or omissions within those minutes? I'm seeing no hands. Okay. I will ask for a motion to approve those minutes. Take the deputy as mover, Councillor Parks as seconder. Okay. Any further comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moves to 10.2, the confirmation of the minutes and the recommendations from January 31st Committee of the Whole. And I note that any particular recommendations may be singled out in the Committee of the Whole minutes for debate or separate vote. There is a lengthy list. That is the Capital Budget Committee of the Whole meeting. Are there any noted errors or omissions in the minutes? Seeing none, and can I get a motion? Deputy? Approve and adopt?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? I'll take Councillor Parks. Thank you. Okay. Any comment? Any desired separation? Seeing none and seeing no further comment, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to 10.3, confirmation of the minutes and recommendation of February 7th Committee of the Whole meeting. And again, any of the particular recommendations may be singled out. Are there any noted errors or omissions in the minutes? I'm seeing none. And there are a number of resolutions. We can capture them as one if that is the desire of council. Looking for a motion. I'll take the deputy and Councillor Townend, you're seconding. Okay, any comments from the deputy or the seconder? Any comments from anywhere else? Then I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. That was the end of the minutes. We move to section 12, the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer, and we have Mr. Silver.
Yes, good evening again, Worship and Council.
And do you have anything to add or to highlight with your report, sir?
No, I don't have anything to add, Your Worship, but I would be glad to answer any questions that council may have.
Council, do you have any questions with regard to this report and the recommendation contained within it? I'm seeing no questions. We do have a recommendation to amend the organizational chart. Do I have a mover? I'll take Councillor Buderick, seconded by Councillor Porter. Any comments from the mover? Seconder? Any comments from anyone else? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is carried. Thank you. And that's the end for Mr. Silver. We move to Business Services Department, Treasurer. Item 13.1 is the 2022 miscellaneous fees and charges. And there's Mr. Dickey to speak to this. Do you have anything to highlight or to add to this report, sir?
Good evening. No, I think nothing new to add. There's not many changes proposed at this point from last year, so a couple. So if you take any questions or if there's something from a specific department, perhaps one of the directors could also answer any questions on specific fees.
Thank you. Council, do you have any question with regard to the fees as proposed? I'm seeing no questions. And then I'll look for a motion to approve. Councillor Townend, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Deputy, thank you. Any comments from the mover? Seconder? Anyone else? Seeing no comments, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to the adoption of the 2022 operating budgets. The big one. And we have our treasurer here to speak to it. Do you have anything to add at this time? And we have the deputy treasurer here as well.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think the deputy will just provide a quick synopsis as we discussed earlier, if that's okay, and then move forward with the discussion on the motion and any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Renier, are you prepared to make your presentation at this time?
I am prepared. I'll share my screen.
Thank you.
I'll keep it brief, but yeah, so 2022 operating budget recap. So just high level what was presented a month ago now, but we had proposed a 1.7% overall residential tax increase, which was a 1.8% township. I did want to just speak to that briefly. So that 1.7 overall was based on the assumption of a flat education rate and an estimated 2% county rate increase. So when we were preparing our budget, we didn't know either. Since then, we can confirm the education rate eventually is staying flat. So that's good. In terms of the county rate, I believe they had a draft budget proposal go last week. They haven't finalized it yet. But from what I've heard, it's could be between 3.2 to 3.5%. So I just want to make sure we're all aware what that would bring our overall to approximately 2.2% over the 2% from that 1.7 based on the assumptions we had at the time. In case anyone, we could speak to that later. But so I'm saying that overall there's about an 18.6 million levy requirement. That includes 630,000 in debt payments, which includes about 150,000 in interest. Our net reserve and reserve fund withdrawals is just a little $6,600. That's a little misleading as there's some big inputs into reserves, and there's also some pretty big withdrawals out of reserves, which you can find in the budget binder. And overall, there's about $2.4 million contribution to capital. And that's made up of the 1.9 I spoke to earlier, as well as our OMPF, which is just under $500,000. So overall, this just kind of shows the last 4 year summary. 4 year average, it's seen a 3.2% township increase and a 1.9 overall over the 4 years. I think it's important to note that in 2021 and 2022, we've seen assessment freezes as part of the COVID pandemic response from the provincial government, which has put increased pressure, I guess, on the tax rate as there was no phase-in assessment. Overall, our levy requirement is up just about $600,000. 270,000 of that comes from assessment on new developments, so new houses primarily that have come online in the year. And the other 320,000 is coming as a result of the 1.8% township tax rate increase. So what this means for our average residential bill, our average residential assessment in Loyalist Township is 257,000. That has remained static as assessments haven't changed. That would mean $2,086 would be the annual township property taxes on that assessment, which is a $36 increase over last year, or about an extra $3 a month for the township portion of the bill. This is just kind of a breakdown of where that money goes. So I'm at $2,086 based on net expenditures. You can see the largest expenditure is salary, wages, and benefits, which is 45%. The OPP contract's about 10%, and contribution to capital is 10%, and other expenses as such. Another way of showing it is just based on the division or the departments within the township. So again, like emergency services, for example, gets about 10%, external agencies 13%. Again, that's the OPP primarily, and conservation authority, as well as the other departments. Community and customer service at 40%. That's primarily the Public Works Division that's within there. They also have recreation in there. This is just a breakdown of the net budgets by departments between their revenues and their expenses. And that just kind of shows where we get to that $18.6 million general net levy requirement for 2022. Just to briefly touch on the other services. So transit, the budget is going up 18%, as you can see there. That's primarily due to the pilot of the accessibility transit. I do just want to note that the majority of the transit is made up from a special area rate, which is applied to just Amherst residents only. The provincial gas tax, as well as fares, is what makes up, which is what funds that budget. The other budget we got here is the ferry operating budget, which you can see as well as increased about 20%. That's due to proposed staffing changes as a result of the of the new electric ferry that's coming. And staff are currently in negotiations with MTO on that. And that is not funded at all through the tax rate, just so everyone is clear on that. Utilities operating budget. The operating budget's up about 4% there, or $329,000. There is increased impulse activity that kind of comes in and out. So you can see there the total adjusted gross budget. This is just the rates. So these rates were approved back in November now, end of November, I believe, or maybe it was beginning of December. So for 2022, just to jog your memory, we did keep the fixed rate flat for as we have in 2021 and 2020. And for 2022, we were also able to keep the combined consumption rate flat as well. So there's been no change in 2022 to the rates for utilities. Again, there's the budget as a policy document. You'll get many, many more reports from finance throughout the year. And that's my quick recap.
Thank you very much, Mr. Renier. Council, do we have any questions? I'll start with Councillor Porter. Thank you.
I do have a question. I know for years that we've been using as an example when we send a flyer out to our residents, the average assessed value. And it kind of struck me as odd this year when I saw the average assessed value of $257,000. And I presume we get that number by adding up all the values of every single property, including vacant lands, that could be assessed at $19,000. And so that average is brought down by quite a bit. Do you know off the top of your head what the median assessed value is in our municipality?
Through you, Your Worship. I do not have that off the top of my head. That 257 is provided through MPAC, and that's the average residential assessment. So they would just be looking at properties assessed as residential. I can get the median and get that back to you. I don't have that with me at the moment, though.
It just feels a bit misleading because I don't know anybody at this point in time whose value of their house is $257,000 given the market. And I understand that might be the impact value, but it's a very poor example to give our residents of how it affects their taxes, because very few, if any, are at that value. So I'm wondering if, we could relook at the way we present this information to give a more accurate accounting to people as to how it affects their taxes on a yearly basis by using a median assessed value in our municipality as opposed to an average. It's just a comment. I'm just throwing it out there, possibly to look at. I'm not sure when we're doing our flyer. That usually comes quite a bit after the budget is passed, but it's something to consider when we do our information presentation to the general public when we put that flyer in their tax bill.
Thank you. Mr. Renier, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just add one more thing, just so everyone, I'm not sure if everyone's clear, is the current assessment, like that assessment would be based on 2016 market values. So I think that's important to note as well. We were supposed to begin phasing into 2020 and that got canceled through COVID. So these numbers, yeah, they certainly, as we know what the market's done in the last year here, they certainly don't reflect up-to-date market values. So those are 2016 market values, which are quite outdated at this point, especially with the last 2 years of the market in our region. But just to add that as well. But yeah, no, we can certainly look at finding a median number in terms of the tax bill insert.
Unfortunately, Mr. Renier, based on what you just said, the median would still be the median of the 2016 residential tax value. So would it not?
Yeah, I don't imagine it's much different. And in terms of their impact on the tax bill, I mean, the assessment roll that we get from MPAC that is reflective of the 2016, that's the other side of the multiplier. So it's hard, but I don't know what the median is, but it's probably not much different, but
we can look at that. Thank you. Any other questions with regard to that presentation or the budget as a whole, the operating budget as a whole? No questions. I see Mr. Silver's come on. Is that just to be available to answer questions?
Absolutely, Your Worship. Yep, I'm glad to answer questions as well.
Council, this is where we will approve, in theory at least, approve the operating budget. Okay. We have any final questions, comments? I'm seeing none. I would look for a motion. I'll go to the deputy.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation passing the budget.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Townend, thank you. Mover, comment?
No, not really. Just thanks to staff for all the work that they did to bring this forward and for any comments that were received from the public.
Thank you. And seconder comment? Anyone else have comment? I'm seeing no further comment. I will add my thanks to our staff at all levels, Mr. Dickey and Mr. Renier, of course, leading the process along with Mr. Silver, but all of the department heads and all of the managers, and in fact, right down to all of our staff have had input on this over a tremendous amount of time. I know this went back to September, October, they started planning this particular budget year. And then I would also add all of the input from the public. It was noted earlier that there were questions about, the web access to the budget, and the question was there: are people hitting the same one a few times from the same IP address? And I don't know the answer to that either. But I think overall, this year we have seen better interaction through our web services with our budget than any previous year. And so I greatly appreciate the public's interest and input to our budget process. With that, if there's no final comment from the mover, okay, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We move to item 13.3, an Ontario Municipal Modernization Grant Intake 3. And I see Mr. Dickey. Go ahead, sir. Anything to add?
Mr. Mayor. Yes, yes, yeah, this report is just getting authority to sign the agreements, but just to highlight that we've just pleased that we've been successful. We got 3 projects approved on intake 2, and we've got 3 more projects approved in intake 3. So yeah, so we're quite pleased that some of these projects are getting this one, I believe, is 65% funding for these 3 projects. So but just to highlight that, yeah, we're kind of pleased we've been successful in getting some of these awarded.
Thank you. Council, any questions with regard to these modernization funds? Again, I will add my thanks to the staff who did the work and to do the grant applications, and obviously it's been successful, not just with these 3, but with a number of other grants recently we've received. We've been very successful lately, and I appreciate all the work that our staff put into that. Do I have a motion to receive, or Councillor Buderick, go ahead. Receive and adopt? Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Parks, thank you. Any comments from anyone? Councillor Buderick, go ahead.
It's just quickly, it's nice that we're getting or winning some of these funding applications to help us move things forward, and it being at not just our ratepayers' dime, which is a good thing. Some nice savings.
Thank you. Anyone else have comment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to 2021-2022 provincial gas tax. And again, Mr. Dickey.
And nothing further to add, but available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Dickey or others on this? I'm seeing no questions. Can I get a motion? I'll take Councillor Porter. Receive and adopt. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Parks, thank you. Any comment from mover or seconder? Anyone else? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to Community and Customer Services Department with regard to the Enterprise Fleet Management Service Agreement. And I see that Director McFarland is here. Director, do you have anything to add to your report?
Nothing further, Your Worship.
Thank you. This was brought up at the previous Committee of the Whole meeting and had thorough discussion. And there is a recommendation that includes 2 parts. Council, any questions for the director? Nothing? Do we have a motion? Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation 1 and 2.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Townend, thank you. Any comments, mover?
No, I think I made them all during previous meetings.
Thank you. Seconder? Anyone else have comments? I'm seeing none. I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And item 14.2, Recreation Service Delivery Review. Madam Director, do you wish to comment or add to this report?
Nothing further, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions with regard to this report? Seeing none. Right. Are we looking for, can I get a motion, please? Councillor Parks, so moved. Councillor Townend, you're seconding. Thank you. Comment from the mover? Seconder? Anyone else? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we go through to Corporate Services, the Township Clerk. A bylaw to amend 2019-114 Committee Appointment Bylaw. We have a recommendation by the report and a recommendation with some blanks in it. And Madam Clerk, do you wish to add or highlight anything?
Nothing to add, nothing to highlight, Your Worship. We've left the blanks for council to make those appointments, but if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. And council, I would note that item number 3 is the appointment of council members to the Renewable Energy Fund grant review. So we're looking for volunteers for that. And as well as a volunteer under number 1 for the county council alternate. Does anyone have anything to wish to ask or comment on at this time before I take a motion? Okay, let me be more blunt about that. Is there anyone wishing to volunteer to sit on the Ward 2-3 subcommittee? Councillor Buderick, you're wishing to volunteer. Thank you. And Councillor Parks, you're wishing to volunteer. Thank you. And is there anyone wishing to volunteer to be the county council alternate? Councillor Townend. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none. I think I filled in all. I know what the number 2 is. Madam Clerk?
I was just going to say number 2, yes.
And number 2 is the appointment of a citizen representative. And I'll be blunt, this was discussed for information purposes as an identifiable issue in closed session. And so I will allow the mover to fill in that blank. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? I'll go to Deputy Mayor. And ask you to fill in the blanks verbally.
Pardon me?
And ask you to fill in the blanks verbally.
Okay, thank you. To receive and adopt the recommendations, number 1, to appoint Councillor Townsend as the county council alternate. Number 2, to appoint Mr. Broderick as the Renewable Energy Fund subcommittee. Number 3, to appoint Councillor Buderick and Councillor Parks as the council representatives. And then adopt number 4.
Thank you. Okay. Does the clerk have clarity on those?
I do, Your Worship.
And do I have a seconder for that? I'll take Councillor Porter. Okay. Any comments? Deputy, go ahead.
I just want to throw a thank you out there to everyone that put their name forward and is willing to continue on the committees.
Thank you. If there's no further comment, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We move to parking bylaw enforcement. We have a report from the clerk. Madam Clerk, do you have anything you wish to add to this report at this time?
I was just going to quickly say this was in response to a delegation and resolution 2022.60.2. Part of the key points is that the township is reviewing the parking bylaw, as well as a bylaw enforcement policy was presented to council at a committee of the whole and will be brought forward to a further committee of the whole, hopefully in March. Which will again speak to a level matrix in regards to the enforcement of our parking bylaw, and available for any questions if anybody had any.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for the clerk with regard to this? I'm seeing no questions. I would note in the recommendation that it is to receive for information and provide further direction. Okay. I would also note a repeat of what the clerk just said is that there will be further information with regard to bylaw enforcement coming to a future committee of the whole meeting. Councillor Buderick. I just read Broderick's name over there. My apologies.
Anyway, to receive and as information, and wait until more further information comes forward in a March meeting regarding this.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Parks, thank you. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to item 15.3, proposed amendment to bylaw 2010-006 noise bylaw. And again, this is the Madam Clerk.
Last one, Your Worship. So this was in regards to our noise bylaw. It as well is up for to be reviewed. However, it has come to light that in regards to the industrial area, it is incorporated as part of the overall noise bylaw. And it's silent, it's pretty silent in regards to, again, when we zone lands for the industrial use, in regards to the loading and unloading. So in consultation with the planning department, we did go through and look at how we could amend this in the interim until the full review is on and it comes up for renewal. And basically what it's, the industrial facilities require an environmental compliance approval, which is a permit issued by the Ministry of the Environment. And it does speak to noise, so it would be incorporated as part of that, which would exclude it from the township noise bylaw in regards to the Taylor Kidd Industrial Park only at this time.
Okay,
There's
thank
any
you.
questions? Sorry, so this is the report that's going forward. The idea would be that the draft bylaw would be presented at the March 14th meeting, open for any public comment, and if depending on the comments that are received on the 14th of March, could either be considered for approval on that date, or if there's opposition, then it would be discussed and or moved to a future meeting if depending on the comments that are received.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions or comments with regard to the report before us? I'm seeing none. We have a recommendation to receive and that the draft bylaw with amendments be included on the March 14th for public comment and consideration. Council? Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt recommendation number 1.
Thank you. Councillor Budrick, you're seconding. Thank you. Any comments anywhere? No? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is carried. Thank you. And we move forward to Economic Growth and Community Development Services. And I see Merit is coming forward. And we have a report with regard to D14-001-2022 Latham Pool Products. Madam Director, do you have anything to add to the report at this time?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions? I'm seeing no questions. And I'll look for a motion just to lift the holding symbol. Councillor Porter, so moved. Thank you. Councillor Budrick, seconding. Okay. Any comments? Mover, seconder? Anyone else? Seeing no comments, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We go to 16.2, additions of non-designated properties to the Loyalist Township Municipal Register of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest. We have a report, the number of properties identified. Madam Director, do you have comment?
Through you, Your Worship, I just wanted to highlight that we received communications regarding the one of the recommended properties. And it was a letter of objection, which has been included in the council agenda. We have Miss Chelsea Tyers here, who is the cultural heritage specialist with WSP. And she prepared the cultural heritage resource assessment. And she is here tonight, so she would be happy to answer any questions council may have on the recommended listing properties.
Thank you. Council, you've seen the report, and I believe you've seen the letter of objection. Do you have any questions? I'll go to Councillor Porter.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The properties that are listed, has there been any kind of conversation with the homeowners or the property owners? Were they engaged in the process in any way?
Madam Director? Oh, Ms. Furness?
Ms. Furness will take that.
Okay.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Porter. Letters of communication advising of the recommended listings and why each property were being recommended was mailed to all the property owners. So there's only been 2 that we were in correspondence with, that that we had conversations with, that had reached out as a result of it, and only and one of them was the letter of objection. The other property owners, we did not hear any responses from the letters that we sent.
Okay. Is that okay, Councillor Porter?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions with regard to this? I'll go to Councillor Parks.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to I think probably Ms. Furness. Just trying to get some clarification now that this person has expressed an interest of not having their property included on the list. Does it automatically get included, or do we not include it now? I'm sorry if it spoke to it in the report. I didn't see it.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Parks, it would be council's decision. So the 5 properties are being recommended this evening to be listed. And if there's any questions in regards to the objections on the one property, we have Ms. Tyers here that can speak to that if there's any questions on it. But it would be council's decision. It wouldn't be automatically on the list. So if there was one to be removed, the motion would just have to be altered to remove one of them.
Okay, Councillor Parks. Okay. Other questions? I'm seeing no further questions. Okay, do I have a motion? Councillor Porter.
Has moved to receive the report and adopt the recommendations for all the properties except for 22 Brooklands Park Avenue.
Accept that as a motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parks. Seconding. Thank you. Councillor Porter, you have to make comment.
Yeah, I think that I remember way back when we talked about heritage properties and we first developed this list on council, and it was, I can't remember whether it was last term or the term before, how many years ago it was, but I remember very clearly that it was going to be a voluntary list, and then anybody that did not want to be on it did not have to be on it. And I think property owners and homeowners have the right to do that. I think if they don't want to be listed, they shouldn't have to be.
Thank you. Seconder comment? Nothing further? Anyone else have comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And we move forward to 16.3, 2022 projects, inclusion of active transportation elements. And I would note that this is a topic, at least part of this topic is one that was addressed earlier in comments. Madam Merritt, do you wish to make comment on this report?
Either through you, Your Worship, thank you. So either just to clarify that the report tonight is really to ask for direction with respect to exploring or including active transportation elements in the 4 projects that are listed to be designed this year. And it's ahead of the infrastructure master plan being completed. We are expecting that the infrastructure master plan will have a list of projects moving forward, but we didn't want to miss the opportunity with these 4 projects that are moving ahead this year.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for the director? I'll start with Councillor Buderick.
Just one question. Has there been any studies done with into the effect of the possibilities of crossing of County Road 6? Because the one pathway or trail that was spoke of comes out on County Road 6. And I mean, I know we've dropped the speed limit on that in the last little while, but I'm concerned with the safety of people trying to cross there if that were to happen.
So no, there hasn't been a study done at this moment. The trail that we're working on right now is actually going up on the east side of County Road 6 going north. So that provides one connection. Moving forward with more connectivity will be it's part of the infrastructure master plan project on how we could do this safely moving forward.
Okay. Is that okay, Councillor Buderick? Okay. It's well, I did see the Deputy Mayor's hand, and then I've seen Mr. Winnicky. Deputy Mayor, do you have a comment or question?
I have a question through you to the director. In regards to the number 4, the pathway, and the number of residents that we had speaking tonight, I'm trying to think of options. Like, is there an option that instead of a pathway cutting through the rear yards, it could be tied in with sidewalks and a pathway between a couple houses or something like that? I know that if we're going to the developer anyway, looking for options, are there other options like that that we could review as well?
So through you, Your Worship, absolutely, there are options that can be looked at. As soon as you start looking at pathways and sidewalks, it is no longer a multi-use trail because sidewalks are not designed for bicycles to go on them. So again, it all depends what direction from council will be. If it's a multi-use path trail connection that we're looking for, based on the concept that was provided to us by the developer, there's no space in front of the houses to put a multi-use path. So one of the options was to carry on with the Ridge Park Trail, which is in between everybody's backyard, going towards County Road 6.
And I'll go to Councillor Porter.
Yeah, I'd like to be sure I understand, and I'm sorry if it has been talked about in the past, but I want to make sure that I clearly understand what the residents were saying tonight. In that we want to do the recommendation is for a trail behind these houses, and these residents would rather be able to extend their backyards and line up with the other backyards as opposed to putting a trail there. So is that like a summation of the issue, I guess?
Yes, I would say so. There's 5 properties that are affected. You've heard all of them tonight. So their backyard, the second concept that was applied for, it allows for lot extension in the back of their backyards, as opposed to extending the trail there.
Okay, Councillor Porter.
And just to follow up then, so if the trail was not extended there, there would be other options for a trail that could be looked at a later date. Is that what I understood you to say earlier?
So sorry, the trail option would no longer be available if we are not going there, because the only other option is to go a pathway in between the houses onto the sidewalk on the proposed Jack Kiffin Place, and then back through another pathway, and then onto the hydro property that you've heard one of the homeowners talk about, that will connect to County Road 6. So it's no longer deemed a trail because you're going through sidewalks at that point.
If I may continue that line of thinking, so if it's a sidewalk, what one of the residents said was that the trail being proposed is gravel. So it's not really a bicycle path or an all-purpose trail was their point. I mean, a sidewalk and a trail, I guess I don't know what the difference is, if it's other than, width, length. I'm not sure how you quantify what is the difference between a trail and a sidewalk, I guess is the question.
Well, and that's what we're asking direction from council at this point. Sorry, I see that Ms. Campbell probably wants to add more, and Mr. Winicky wanted to add more as well. At this point, we're asking to explore options now that it's a possibility. Explore the options of what can be put there as far as design of path and trails. We are asking for direction whether council is agreeing for us to look at it, and then we would design. It's not decided at this point if it's paved or gravel or, what the trail would look like. Because we're not at this point yet.
I saw Mr. Winicky's hand up earlier, and I see that Ms. Campbell's joined us. Mr. Winicky, did you wish to add a comment at this point?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to add one point, just stepping back on sort of the bigger picture here. So as part of the secondary plan process, we are also proposing a trail structure. And the hope is eventually to get this whole area of Amherst View sort of accessed through this multi-use trail system. So that is in the vision for the secondary plan area, which is just on the other side of County Road 6. I just wanted to add that one point.
And Ms. Campbell?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I just wanted to note, I think I missed a little bit as I was coming into the meeting. I apologize, but just the difference between the sidewalk and the wider pathway in terms of the ability for it to be used by various types of users and not just people walking. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
Okay. If I may, and I'll address this to council, my understanding of what we're looking at for that particular spot is the idea that as the developer works to the area north of these houses on Island View, there would be new lots developed. And as those new lots come in, they can either be separated by a path of some kind, right? Or have backyards that butt up against backyards. And if we do that, then the pathway that currently exists through Ridge Park would run out of place to go. And that's maybe a very late explanation, but unless someone wants to correct me, I think that's a fairly accurate explanation. Once the lots are built, there is no more option to put a pathway through. There may be other ways of working around, but there would not be that particular option. So I come back to council for further questions. Deputy, go ahead.
Just, there was a comment made earlier and I just want to get a clarification question. So, and tying in with the comments you just made as well, Mayor. So where this, the request there that's on the motion tonight, or the recommendation, is simply to review, to have discussions with the developer about a trail. Where this blue line is drawn, that's just a conceptual drawing and it may not actually impact the backyards of the residents that presented tonight. Sorry, to nail it down a little closer.
Is anyone able to answer that? Ms. Merritt?
So absolutely, that what we're requesting tonight is direction if council wishes to provide connectivity in that area. Now is the time, as the mayor mentioned, now is the time to look at path options for that development. Now the site is very tight, so you're not looking for, it has to connect with other areas as well. And if we're looking at a path, quite frankly, that's going to be the extension of the Ridge Park Trail. Unless there's reconfiguration of the street, that is proposed, or, you know, reconfiguration of houses. But the way that the concept that's been proposed right now, it's looking like if council wishes to provide connectivity through path, it looks like it's the Ridge Park trail extension.
I would also note the comments from the developer suggesting that the timelines here have extended because of this particular deliberation. And you know, the recommendation that says the developer be requested to include an adequate connection from the trail in Ridge Park to County Road 6 is, I think, is still fairly flexible as to what that connection would be, but it does require land and a decision so that the developer can move forward with his lots.
Yep.
I come back to council. Do we have further questions? Deputy.
Just to clarify that statement you made. So making this decision tonight, this will advance the developers. This will open the way for the developer to advance their plans then. Either way, I guess it would allow that, but this is what's holding it up.
Yes, that would be accurate.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Buderick.
I was just curious, staff's thoughts on what the developer's plan is that the developers brought forward. Has there been consideration? Has there been much dialogue with that? Not sure who that's.
Madam Merritt or Mr. Winnicky or Ms. Furness?
More of a thought, throwing it out for discussion.
Okay, so through you, Your Worship, Mr. Armitage showed earlier in the presentation what the concept that he applied for, and it shows the preference. I believe that's what you're asking us, is what the preference from the developer is to go ahead with the lot addition for these 5 lots. So it will be backyards abutting to backyards from Island View Drive and Jack Kippen Place. And then the end of the trail, the Ridge Park Trail, basically will meander through the Jack Kippen Place road, through a pathway between houses onto sidewalks, through another pathway on the other side of the development, across the hydro property, as you heard Mr. Armitage mention, to County Road 6. That was the proposal that he submitted to staff.
So if I could summarize that, there is still a pathway access, just not the multi-use pathway that staff are requesting it to connect to the multi-purpose pathways.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
It would jump them onto sidewalks and roads.
Yes.
Councillor Buderick, go ahead.
Through you again, sir. So is there any way, I mean, I know this has been kind of dragged on a long time, but is there a way, I mean, obviously you're asking council to make a decision this evening, but we're seeing one concept in front of us and another concept is just something we're speaking about. We're not necessarily seeing it. Is there any way that could come back quickly that we could see it in both ways? So we would have the opportunity to visually see the difference. I mean, I don't want to, I mean, that sounds like a lot, but seeing a picture of one idea and then hearing about it and talking about it is I'm more of a hands-on person. That's all. Sorry.
Madam Merritt, do you have access to the visual that Mr. Armitage provided earlier? Or does Ms. Furness, Mr. Rinicky, or Ms. Campbell have that?
I do, Your Worship. But what, if I could clarify, is what we're asking tonight is if council wishes that trail connectivity is provided through the subdivision. That's the decision we're asking. We would then go back to the developer and say that they need to include an adequate connection to the trail. If council doesn't wish to have trail connectivity in that area, then we would just tell the developer that the concept that they've submitted is good to go. So that's basically the decision that we require tonight, is if, you know, whether it goes exactly as the very first concept that was given to us at pre-consultation, or an iteration of, if council wishes trail connectivity, then we would go back to the developer, and it's up to them to provide us with an adequate solution for trail connectivity. So that's really what we're asking, but I can show the drawing if
you have it.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Let me just, oh, I will have to be given permission to share my screen, I believe.
Madam Clerk?
Oh, no, you can do it.
Thank you.
Share screen button at the bottom. Yeah.
Yep, no, I have it now. I'm just going to open this first.
Council, I know this is becoming a late night, but given the time that, particularly on this issue, given the time that it's already taken, I appreciate your indulgence to continue this deliberation.
Sorry, I have it. I'm just going to orient it the right way before I share my screen. I'm going to go this way. Okay, I think that looks good. I'm not sure. And share. Sorry, it's coming.
Oh,
it's coming.
Okay.
It's coming. Okay, can we see that?
Council, we can all see that? Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to move. I'll explain. I'll just like orientate a little bit here. So Island View Drive, if you can see my cursor, is like this part right here. Okay, and McDonough Crescent is going this way. And then this is the new part, Jack Kippen Place this way. So this is County Road 6 right here. This is the hydro property that they're talking about a little bit earlier on. And this is the Park Ridge Trail coming this way, and it ends somewhere here. So this is the limit of the new subdivision property. And these blocks right here, so there's a block here, so 36 to block 40, basically would be the lot additions to these 5 lots here. Okay. So one concept that was presented to us was that the trail, this block here as well, would become part of it as well. So the trail would go this way, basically, if you follow the little cursor. And then following the hydro property boundaries to County Road 6. Discussions have been started with Hydro 1. We made it as far as paying a fee in order to get an easement, but at this point, like, it's a bit premature to be spending money until we know for sure what the trail is going to look like. So on this drawing as well, you can see there's a pathway right here. So should that trail not be available to connect directly to County Road 6, basically the trail would end here, get onto Jack Kippen Place from this pathway, onto sidewalks. There's another pathway right here, onto County Road 6. So that is the proposal that the developer submitted.
And Madam Merritt, if I may ask one question, along the top of those blocks 36 through 40, and kind of framed in the word block 41, there is a dotted column running the entire way across the lots that would be on the south side of Jack Kippen.
Yes.
You see where block 4, I'm pointing at my screen, it's not helping you at all.
No, I know exactly. So this is a hydro
What is
easement.
that?
That's a hydro easement.
Okay. Right. So that's above ground wiring or below ground wiring?
Good question. I wonder if I don't want to put Miss Campbell on the spot here, but I don't
Ms.
know.
Furness has her hand up.
Okay, I can't see her.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor and Jenna, please correct me if I'm inaccurate here, but I believe they're no longer in existence. And they're no longer used by Hydro. So the developer has applied to have those easements released from Hydro, and which they're likely to be successful in doing. So they likely will no longer, as the subdivision moves forward, be on the property anymore.
Okay, so that is just an historic easement, and that would be the backyards of those lots along Jack Kippen.
Yes.
And Ms. Campbell, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to add, in order to have the multi-use pathway run through there, we'd be looking for a 3-meter wide pathway with a shoulder platform on either side of it. So probably be looking for a minimum of a 6-meter width. Some of the blocks 36 through 40 are slightly deeper than that. So if we were looking to get the 6 meters or so, perhaps a bit wider, there may still be some remnant pieces that could possibly be looked at as what could be done with those adjacent to the existing lots on Island View.
So 36, 37 might still be available, but part of 38, 39, and 40 would likely be taken up by that pathway. Is that a fair view?
Again, through you, I think those discussions would have to take place, but in other areas where we're looking for those pathways, it's a minimum of 6 meters. We like to have 10. So I just wanted to note that.
Okay, thank you. It echoes back to me to be what we used to refer to as a 40-foot allowance. Members of council. Councillor Buderick, go ahead.
I just had one question, and probably Ms. Campbell could answer it. So if some of these people will be picking up some of this extra property that won't be part of a proposed laneway, my thought was the landowner or the resident who has a pool, they have to have fencing, and I mean it could come at a significant cost depending on where the fence is now and where they could move their fence to or initially build a fence. I was just looking out for someone like that, that's all. Just if you were able to comment, I'm not sure which lot had the pool, that's all.
Do we know which lot had the pool? No? One of them.
I did write that down, I think.
I believe, is it where block 40 is?
I think it was 153. Well, there's a pool at where block 40 is, but I believe it was 153 Island View, which is,
I think it's not
the end one, I believe, but I'm sorry, Councillor Buderick, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Council, we're looking at the map right now. Do we wish to continue looking at the map? Do we have more questions that the map can help, or should we come back to full screen? I'm seeing no further questions with the map. I'll ask you to stop sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Council, we now have a slightly better view of that. Do I have any further questions, or can we get to a motion? I'm seeing no questions. I'll look for a motion. I'll go to Councillor Buderick. Councillor Buderick?
My apologies, I had it on a different screen. I have to get back to my agenda just to check that map out. More of a comment, not an emotion. I understand, and I know that these pathways are going to be a large portion of the Amherst West going forward, kind of the way the subdivision is. Is that why we're setting this up that way? I'm just curious if we're trying to link it into any parts of Amherst that we have the opportunity to. That was all.
And Ms. Merritt?
Through you, Your Worship, actually, I'll let Mr. Winnicky answer. He is the project manager for the secondary plan, so it's very intimate with the details.
Thank you. So yes, we, as part of the secondary plan process, we have developed 3 land use concepts for that area that are coming forward to the Technical Advisory Committee and the Coordinating Committee this week. And those do include a network of multi-use trails, each of the options, with a mind of connecting that area with the rest of Amherstview. So that is very much part of the plan going forward.
Thank you. And Ms. Campbell?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I just would add that although the pathways that we're proposing to connect to right now are not paved, if in the future there was a desire to have those paved to allow them to be used year round and that sort of thing, that is something that could happen in the future. So I just wanted to comment that as well, and to note that, you know, that pathway connects to a majority of sort of the west end of the existing area of Amherstview. And also, as Ms. Merritt noted earlier, we are looking to bring the multi-use pathway that currently exists at Amherst Drive and County Road 6 down south to this location to connect all the way up and eventually connect up to the Loyalist Business Park as well. So it's to be part of sort of a holistic connected network in the future. And the reason that we brought it forward now is because this connected interconnected network is going to be presented to council as part of the infrastructure master plan, but we're not quite there yet to have council's input on that. So that's why we've brought this report at this time.
Thank you. And I did notice when I was looking for a motion earlier, Councillor Buderick's hand went up, but then I saw Councillor Townend's hand as well. But there I say it, but I've lost him at the moment. Councillor Townend, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be quick so I can make it before I go out again. So I would move to receive the report and adopt recommendations 1 through 4. In specific respect to 4, I would add, so I'll read that one out, that I would move that the developer be requested to include an adequate connection from the trail in the Ridge Park to County Road 6 in Lakeside Village Phase 8, and that staff come back to council with a report for trail options.
I'll take that as a motion. Council, do I have a seconder? I'll ask again, do I have a seconder? I don't see a seconder. Motion does not hit the floor. Council, what are we going to do? And Deputy, would you take the chair for a moment?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had a real train of thought here, so I've got to switch my mindset. So we're looking for a motion from council. Mayor Brzee.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I would move to receive the report and adopt the recommendation with 1 through 3. And if I get a seconder, I'll explain my rationale.
So moved. Councillor Budrick, you second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
thank you. Comments? Sorry, Mayor.
And Amherst View has had various phases over the last 50 years. I grew up in an area that had absolutely no little walkways through between houses. Right? We walked the streets. Of course, we didn't have sidewalks in those days either. And then as you know, it moved, that was on the east side. As we moved through the middle and into the west, we started to have these paved walkways between houses every so often to create links and quite specifically, at least it appeared to be quite specifically, aimed at keeping the kids being able to reach the various other homes of other kids without having to get on to the collector lane, the collector roads, and therefore not be in traffic. And as we move and we've gotten further west, we've come close to up to County Road 6, we've gotten better at it. And I have absolutely no doubt that the Amherst View West Secondary Plan will include an even better version that will include more natural walkways, more accessible walkways, all of the tools that we want now. But it goes in phases, and we can't retroactively go back and fix things that didn't happen in the first place. I certainly have sympathy for the folks that were here earlier today, speaking to the idea that, this is the backyard that they played in, this field that's being developed into housing, and that they had permission from the owner to go grow gardens and build forts. I experienced it myself sitting on this very council. What is now known as the Parkside Subdivision was the field that was my playground as a child. So I certainly understand that. And in fact, the garage that was attached to the house that I grew up in had to be torn down because it was too close to the property line of that development. And so again, I understand where the current property owners are sitting. I understand where the developer is sitting. They're going to be facing people in their backyards for the first time, right? And that's because the developer needs to develop that property, and we want him to develop that property. Having the little pathways between houses that will connect and allow kids, older people, whomever, to access the larger pathways is a good thing. Does every piece have to be fully exposed, path through the forest like it is in Ridge Park? No, I don't think it does. And so for this particular case, I think it's easier, it's quicker, it's a final decision that the developer and the homeowners can live with, right, to move forward and allow the design to focus on these the paved pathways and not necessarily a 6-meter wide or 10-meter wide multi-use pathway that would be more desirable, most definitely. Right? But it doesn't quite fit here. So that's the reason for my motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Seconder, comment?
That was basically what I was kind of going for. Obviously, the mayor has far more experience at this than I do. And I as well grew up playing in fields that are just west of Fairfield Public School, where McEwen, Clifford, Spears, and all that are. So, and I get where he's coming from on this, and I support his motion.
Thank you. Just before I open up to the rest of council, a question to the clerk. Am I seeing it properly that we've lost one councillor? Did we lose Councillor Porter? I just want to make sure she's not waiting to try and get back in.
I do not see on the list to come back in.
Okay, we still have quorum, so we can proceed anyway. Yes, Councillor Budrick.
Through you, sir. I just got a text from her saying that she lost connection and she cannot reconnect. Is there a phone number?
Is through to the clerk, there's a phone number. Was that sent with the email, the original email with the Zoom?
It's on the agenda at the very start of the agenda. The telephone number's there.
Okay, thank you. So we do have quorum, so we can proceed. Anyway, so comments from the rest of council? And Councillor Townsend?
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just so everyone is absolutely clear, the motion that the mayor has presented in specific respect to number 4 is that the developer's original proposal be accepted.
Mover, can you clarify that with the intent?
I hesitate to say that we are accepting a proposal because that is another piece of the zoning and that our planning staff have to work through. But we're allowing for it. I'll put it that way. Is that fair?
So we're allowing for pathways of a different design other than the multi-use.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be my intention.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Townend?
It does. May I continue, Mr.
Yes,
Chair?
please do.
Yeah, thank you. So I appreciate the mover clarifying the motion. I won't be supporting the motion simply because, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically I see the logic of the motion as being, on the one hand, staff have a really great plan, but we'll settle for a mediocre plan because we should be happy that it's at least better than plans 30 years ago. To me, that's not progressive and forward thinking. And so I won't be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Seeing none.
Through
Yes.
the chair, I believe Councillor Porter may have just came in, so I'm just going to allow to talk. I don't think I can. Oops. We'll just confirm that this is Councillor Porter.
Councillor Porter, can you just confirm that that's you on the phone?
Hi, yes, it's Councillor Porter. I'm so sorry. I've lost my internet connection. Anyway, I apologize, and I am here on the telephone. And if you could just let me know where we're at, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the mayor stepped down to make a motion, and I, as the deputy, I've stepped in, and he made the motion to adopt recommendation 1, 2, and 3, and just be silent on number 4.
Okay.
And
has there been a
the
vote
mover
yet?
and seconder have spoken to it, the rest of council. So if you have any comment, if you wish to, please proceed.
Yeah, just that I'm going to support that motion because we did hear from 5 property owners tonight, and there would be another 5 affected should number 4 have gone forward. And I do think the links are important, but I don't think it's an expectation of our residents that live in a subdivision to have a trail through their backyard. And it would be between 2 backyards, and 10 residents would have that same issue of having a trail right in their backyard. So I think although the links are important, I think there's alternates as shown tonight. I will be supporting the motion.
Okay, thank you for the comment. So if there's no one else on council that wishes to comment, I'm just going to quickly comment that the way I see it is 1 through 3, we're adding to the infrastructure we have, and we're making, when we go in to do the work, we're making it better and making it more useful and making it more enjoyable for all modes of transportation, basically. So it can be enjoyed by the residents. Number 4, I see that with the exception of we don't have the property yet, and it would have, although the people that bought those lots bought them the way they are, they were able to enjoy the property, and because they were already under the belief that they were going to be able to purchase that property or obtain the property, it's almost like taking something away from them now that I know they never had before, but it looks like to them it would appear that we're taking it away from them. And that's where I was struggling back and forth, because I like the idea. I think that these walkways are important, or the pathways, sorry, are important. And I think they will be important into the future. And that's why I couldn't come up with a motion that was able to have it all work together in this situation. And that's where my struggle was personally. And so I will be supporting it the way it is, although it's not ideal. And as Councillor Townsend said, it can be viewed as maybe not forward thinking. But in this situation, I think that's the option that I'm willing to go with. But I want to encourage staff, and I appreciate them bringing it forward, and I want to encourage all the future development to be looking for opportunities like this that we can advance the township ahead. So, having said that, back to the mover for final comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You actually took words out of my mouth. It's exactly, I'm very appreciative of the staff pushing to get these, and they should. And again, we do want this progress, but the pieces aren't here this time. Right? We don't have the connection through the hydro property. This one isn't. I don't think this one's going to work, and it's definitely not going to work quickly. So I think we need to move forward with this project to get it going. Okay.
Thank you. And with that, I'll call the motion, and I would just ask Councillor Porter to speak for her motion, since I won't be able to see a hand. So or her vote. So I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye for Porter.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Motion carried. And I will turn the chair back to the mayor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for taking the chair for that moment. At this point, we move to nothing in emergency services, nothing in communications. Actually, before we get to notice of the motion or direct motion, I note the time. It is now 9:51. I don't believe I've had to do this in this term of office, but I will ask for a motion to go beyond 10 o'clock. Councillor Buderick, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand or yell out if you're on the phone.
Aye for Porter.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Right. At this time, we move to notice of the motion or direct motion. Is there anything anyone wishes to bring forward at this time? Nothing? I'm seeing nothing. I'll move forward to the consent agenda. For the purpose of convenience and for expediting meetings, matters of business that are repetitive or routine in nature are included in the consent agenda, and all such matters of business contained in the consent agenda are voted on collectively. A particular matter of business may be singled out from the consent agenda for debate or for separate vote upon the request of any member of council. In the case of a separate vote, the excluded matter of business is severed from the consent agenda. Each and every matter in the consent agenda is recorded separately in the minutes of the meeting. Is there anything within the consent agenda that any member of council wishes to separate? Anyone? I'm seeing none. If there is nothing to separate, then I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Okay, I'll take Councillor Buderick. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parks. Thank you. Any comments on any of the items within the consent agenda? I'm seeing no comments anywhere. I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand or yell out.
Aye for Porter.
Thank you. Motion is carried. And where do we get to? And any minutes, new business, updates from members appointed to county council committees and local boards. I'll go to Councillor Buderick.
Just quickly on tax commission, we passed our budget for 2022, and we've actually got a surplus, so we'll be good. That will be forwarded to our people in the financial department of our municipality.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to report on any committees or appointments they may have? None. I will actually make comment from County Council, as was noted by the deputy earlier. County Council has now at this time received its first pass at the draft budget, and the proposed draft budget, I believe, is currently sitting at 3.5%, but we will be looking to another meeting to refine that. I can't predict at this time where it will end up. Anything else? Nothing further. We move to members' privilege. Anything under members' privilege anyone wishes to bring forward? Councillor Townend, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like it on the public record to officially, formally congratulate Keith Miller, who has given 25 years of service to the Amherst Island landfill. He is irreplaceable, there's no doubt, and he is most certainly a cultural fixture here on Amherst Island. So we extend our congratulations to him.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Dr. Love. On Valentine's Day, no doubt. Anything else under members' privilege? I'm seeing nothing. We go to the confirmatory bylaw. May I have a mover, please? Deputy, so moved, seconded by Councillor Parks. Thank you. Any comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand or yell out.
Aye for Porter.
Thank you. That's the confirmatory bylaw. Next meetings, sorry, that is carried. Next meetings, we have March the 7th for Committee of Adjustment and Committee of the Whole, March the 14th for regular council, and March the 28th for regular council. Is there any other meetings that should be noted at this time?
Not that I'm aware of, Your Worship.
Thank you. Nothing further. Then we actually managed to get it in before 10 o'clock, so we didn't actually need the motion to go beyond 10. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? I'll take Councillor Townend, seconded by Councillor Buderick. Any comment? I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed?
Aye, Porter.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. All right. Motion is carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, those members of council, members of staff, and all the audience members who stuck it out. And I hope you have a great evening and enjoy your Valentine's Day. Take care.
Good night.